Welcome back to Mr. Zombie, the channel where silence has its own voice. Tonight, we explore abandoned cities, places swallowed by time, where every cracked window hides a memory, and every shadow whispers a story. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and if you dare, hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment about which story haunted you most. Let's begin. The Silent Tower. Detroit was full of ghosts, but none loomed taller than the Hensley Tower, a 40-story ruin sealed off since the early 90s. Locals said it was cursed. The last renovation had ended in tragedy when 3 construction workers vanished without a trace. Their tools left mid-use as if they just stepped away. No one ever reopened the site until now. Our rescue team, Urban Search and Recovery, had one job: locate a missing urban explorer who'd live-streamed from inside and disappeared mid-broadcast 2 nights ago. The feed had cut abruptly after a strange metallic scream echoed through his camera mic. We arrived at dusk, 5 of us: Derek, the leader; Maria, our medic; Vince, the tech guy; Juno, the newest recruit; and me, the narrator. The city was quiet. Even the wind seemed afraid to enter the tower's broken windows. Inside, the air felt heavy, as though time itself had stopped breathing. Flashlights swept across faded posters, desks coated with dust, coffee cups still sitting where workers had left them decades ago. Every step echoed too long, as if something far above was mimicking our rhythm. By the 10th floor, static began to bleed through our radios. Vince tried adjusting frequencies, but the interference only grew louder. Then, from the static, we heard it. A voice whispering, "Help me." It was male, distorted, weak. Derek ordered silence. "Could be him," he said. But the voice didn't sound like the missing explorer. It sounded like me. We pressed on. The stairs creaked beneath our boots, dust falling like black snow from the ceiling. On the 15th floor, Juno stopped suddenly. "Someone's been here," she whispered, pointing to a half-eaten energy bar on the ground, still fresh. Then we noticed the footprints. 5 pairs, the same tread pattern as our own boots, but leading up, not down. We followed them in silence until we reached the 23rd floor. The footprints ended in front of a door marked "Maintenance Access Only." Vince forced it open with a crowbar. Inside was a narrow hallway lined with shattered mirrors. Our reflections warped, tall, thin, blurred by grime. I looked over at Maria. She wasn't moving. Her reflection was. "Derek," she whispered, "I think the building's recording us." The lights flickered. From somewhere above, an elevator bell chimed, ding. But none of us had touched the controls. We froze, listening. The elevator's old gears groaned somewhere in the dark, followed by the faintest hum. The sound of machinery that should have been dead for decades. Derek raised his flashlight toward the shaft door at the end of the hall. Dust drifted like ash. Then, slowly, the elevator arrived. Ding. The metal doors slid open halfway, stuttering, then jammed. Inside, the small cabin was lit by a single, flickering bulb. On the cracked mirror above the control panel, someone had written with a greasy finger, "Don't follow yourself." Juno muttered, "Screw this." But Derek had already stepped closer. The floor indicator above the doors flickered. 29, 30, 31. The numbers climbed higher than the building's official blueprints. Hensley Tower only had 40 floors. Yet the panel kept counting. 42, 43, 44. "Faulty wiring," Vince said, though his voice trembled. We decided to take the stairs instead, climbing toward floor 30, where the missing man's GPS last pinged. But as we ascended, the air thickened, stale, metallic, almost warm. My flashlight beam caught movement. Not a shadow, but a shimmer, as if heat distorted the air itself. At floor 28, Maria stopped. "Listen." Somewhere above, we heard a thump, followed by faint footsteps. Slow, heavy. They weren't ours. We killed our lights. The sound continued, deliberate, pacing. Then a voice, hoarse, panicked, echoed down the stairwell. "Stop following me, please," Vince whispered. "That's him." But Derek frowned. No, that sounded like he didn't finish, because we all recognized it. It was my voice again. My throat went dry. I tried speaking to prove it wasn't me, but no sound came out. The voice above screamed once more, then silence. Just the hum of the tower. When we finally reached the 30th floor, the corridor looked wrong. Dust lay thick everywhere, yet there were fresh boot prints, leading into an open office. I shone my light inside. The air shimmered again, and sitting in the middle of the room was a laptop, screen cracked, still recording. The last frame of the missing explorer's livestream was frozen on it. His face, pale, wide-eyed, staring toward something behind the camera. In the reflection of his pupils, you could faintly see us, all 5 of us, but the timestamp on the video read, tomorrow. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Derek leaned in closer to the laptop, but the screen began to glitch, the image rippling like water. Then, for just a second, the frozen frame moved. The explorer blinked. Maria screamed and stumbled back. Vince slammed the laptop shut, but before he did, I caught one final glimpse of the timestamp. It had changed again. Live 11:47 p.m., the exact time showing on my watch. "It's not possible," Vince muttered, stepping away. But deep down, we all felt it. We were being watched. The elevator bell chimed again, closer now. The sound echoed through the hollow floors like a heartbeat. Derek ordered everyone to move. We needed to get out. But the moment we turned, we saw it. A faint figure standing at the far end of the corridor, dressed like us, helmet, uniform, flashlight in hand. The beam of his light shone directly into our faces. Juno whispered, trembling, That's me." The figure mirrored our every move. A split-second delay, like a reflection. Then it turned, vanishing into the darkness. We ran down the stairwell, skipping steps, our breaths ragged. The lights flickered faster the lower we went, the hum of the building rising to a deafening pitch. But the tower wasn't letting us go easily. Every exit we passed was sealed by heavy metal doors, welded shut. On the 12th floor, Maria stopped. Her radio crackled, not with static, but with our voices. "Derek, move. Maria, run. Don't look back." It was us, seconds before we actually said the same words out loud. The tower was predicting us. By the time we burst through the lobby, the front doors were wide open, though we never heard them move. Cold air hit us like a slap. We sprinted out into the empty street, the tower looming behind us, silent once again. When we reached our van, Derek did the head count. 1, 2, 3, 4. He froze. "Where's Juno?" We turned toward the building. The lights inside the Hensley Tower were all dark except one. The 30th floor. A single window glowed faintly, and in that square of light we saw her, standing perfectly still, flashlight aimed down at us. I grabbed the radio. "Juno, answer." Static. Then her voice came through, faint and calm. "Stop following yourselves." The line went dead. Gray rain. The town of Darrenville wasn't on any modern maps. It sat deep in northern Michigan, where roads turned to dirt and forests swallowed every trace of civilization. Locals used to call it the town that breathes in the fog. It was abandoned in 1982 after a chemical plant leak poisoned the groundwater. No one had lived there for decades, or so everyone thought. I arrived there alone. My name's Ryan Cobb, meteorological researcher. My job was simple: investigate reports of a strange annual rain phenomenon. A single storm that appeared only once a year, always on the same day, and only above Darrenville. Locals said the rain whispered. They said you could hear names in it. At first, I thought it was folklore, small-town superstition. But the National Weather Service confirmed radar anomalies that didn't match any natural front. So I set up camp in the remains of the old elementary school, where the roof still held together. I installed 2 microphones, a barometer, and a thermal sensor. The first day was calm. Cold wind, empty streets, overgrown asphalt. I walked the main road past rusted mailboxes and tilted streetlights. The silence felt thicker than fog. Even birds avoided this place. That night, the rain started. No thunder, no lightning, just slow, steady drops that hit the roof like heartbeats. I turned on my recorder. First, it was just water. But then, faintly, between the drops, I heard something, like voices layered beneath the sound. Soft, fragmented syllables. My own name, Ryan. I froze, checked the recording playback. It was there, clear as day. Another voice followed, older, trembling. You came back. My flashlight flickered. The air grew cold. I stepped to the window, expecting to see someone outside, but the street was empty. The puddles shimmered under the rain, and for a second, I saw reflections of people walking, dozens of them, though the road itself was bare. Then the rain stopped. Instantly, every drop froze midair for half a second before vanishing. My instruments shut off all at once. The town fell silent again. I replayed the audio file, trembling. The whisper repeated one last time, softer now. We're still here. And in the static at the end of the file, a timestamp appeared that I hadn't recorded. July 16th, 1982, the day Darrenville officially died. The next morning, the town looked normal again, if you could call a skeleton of concrete and moss normal. The puddles had dried, the clouds were gone, and yet my clothes still felt damp, as if the air itself refused to let go of the rain. I checked my equipment. The barometer had short-circuited, the microphones were fried, and the thermal sensor was reading something impossible. A constant 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the average human body temperature. It was as if the entire town had a pulse. Around noon, I walked toward the old residential area. Most of the houses had collapsed, their roofs caved in, wallpaper curling like skin. But one house stood almost untouched. 2 stories, blue paint faded to gray. The curtains inside swayed slightly, though every window was shut. I stepped onto the porch. My boots creaked on the wood, and the door opened before I even touched it. Inside, the smell hit me first, wet soil and rust. On the living room table lay a stack of tape recorders, identical to mine, all labeled by year. 1983, 1984, 1985. The last one read 2024. I pressed play. Static. Then a voice. The rain remembers. It always comes back for the ones who left. It wasn't my voice, but it was familiar. I searched the drawers and found an old ID badge, soaked and bent. The name printed on it stopped my breath. Ryan Cobb, meteorological intern, 1982. Couldn't be. My grandfather had died before I was born, and his name was... No, my hands shook. My parents never told me much about him, only that he disappeared during fieldwork. I replayed the tape. New words emerged, distorted but clear. If you're hearing this, you came back again. Don't stay for the second rain. It's not water anymore. A chill ran through me. I looked outside. The sky, moments ago bright, was turning gray again. Then, without warning, the radio on my desk, the one I hadn't even turned on, crackled to life. Ryan Cobb, evacuate immediately. The voice was mine, but older, slower, tired. The first drop hit the window, then another, and the whisper returned. Dozens of voices overlapping like wind through trees. Come home, Ryan. I grabbed my recorder and bolted out the door. The rain was falling upward now, droplets rising from the ground like steam. My reflection in the puddle didn't follow that I ran until my lungs burned. The air thick with moisture that shouldn't have existed. The rain kept rising, pulling mist and dirt into the sky as if gravity had flipped. Every surface glowed faintly blue, like moonlight trapped in water. My boots splashed through puddles that reflected not my face, but streets from another time. Clean, alive, filled with people walking under umbrellas. The voices grew louder, layering into something like a chorus. I ducked into an alley and pressed myself against the wall, clutching the recorder. Its red light blinked wildly even though the batteries had died hours ago. Then I heard footsteps, not echoes, actual deliberate footsteps on the wet concrete. A figure emerged from the fog, an older man in a torn raincoat, eyes pale and unblinking. He carried the same model of recorder as mine. When he spoke, his voice cracked like static. "You shouldn't have come back." I froze. "Who are you?" He tilted his head, rain pooling in the wrinkles of his face. "You know who I am. You just don't remember yet." Lightning flashed for the first time all night, and in that flicker I saw it, the badge around his neck. Ryan Cobb, the same one I had in my pocket. My knees went weak. He stepped closer, handing me an old tape labeled "Final Entry." "Don't let the rain hear your name," he whispered. "Once it remembers, it never forgets." I blinked, and he was gone. The rain hissed louder, falling sideways now, swirling like it had a pulse of its own. I stumbled back toward the school where I'd set up camp. The front door was wide open. Inside, everything was drenched. My instruments lay in pieces, and the chalkboard had new words scratched across it. "Second rain arrives at midnight." My watch read 11:59. Outside, the sky ripped open. Not lightning, but a flash of faces in the clouds. Dozens of them, mouths open, whispering names in unison. One name repeated louder than all the rest. "Ryan." I covered my ears, but the sound came from inside me. My vision blurred. My heartbeat synced with the rhythm of the rain. And then silence. When I opened my eyes, the storm was gone. The streets were dry. The air smelled like dust. My recorder was still on, playing one last message. "Data collection complete. Subject did not evacuate." The timestamp, July 16th, 2025. Exactly 43 years after Darrenville died. The grocery store. When a town dies, its stores usually go first. The Wilson's Market was no exception, or at least it shouldn't have been. Everyone in Maple Hollow left after the flood of 2009. Power lines collapsed, bridges washed away, and the government sealed the area for contamination. But 14 years later, I found myself breaking through the old barricade, flashlight in one hand and a crowbar in the other. My name's Adam, ex-security guard, now scavenger. I'd heard rumors that Wilson's Market still had supplies inside. Canned food, tools, even gasoline. The building looked half swallowed by vines. The parking lot was a swamp of weeds and cracked asphalt. I pushed through the front doors, expecting rot and ruin. But inside, it was spotless. The shelves were full. Cereal boxes perfectly lined up. Milk cartons fresh, no dust, no smell. It didn't make sense. I checked the expiration date on a can of beans, June 2025. That was next month. At first, I thought it was some kind of staged setup. Maybe preppers using the place as storage. But there were no footprints, no tire marks, no recent signs of life. Just silence. I walked to the counter. The register screen was glowing, faintly humming. When I pressed a button, the receipt printer spat out a single slip of paper. "Welcome back, Adam." My heart skipped. I hadn't been here before. At least not that I remembered. Then I noticed the security mirrors above every aisle. They weren't reflecting the store as it was. In each, I saw myself, but doing different things. In one, I was restocking shelves. In another, I was sweeping the floor. And in the mirror near the frozen food section, I was standing perfectly still, staring at me. I turned around. Nothing. The intercom crackled. A soft female voice came through, cheerful and calm. "Clean up in aisle 7. There was no aisle 7. Wilson's Market only had 6. Then I heard it. The squeak of a shopping cart rolling somewhere deeper inside. I raised my flashlight. Between the shelves, a shadow moved. Slow, steady, deliberate. When I stepped closer, the air smelled faintly of bleach and cold air, like a refrigerator left open too long. Something brushed against my leg, a receipt fluttering down from nowhere. On it, words printed in faint ink. "Thank you for your purchase. Come again tonight." The clock on the wall ticked once, then twice. It read 11:59 p.m. The second hand on the clock hit midnight, and the lights went out. Every aisle plunged into darkness except for the faint emergency glow near the back freezer section. The air turned cold enough that my breath fogged. I aimed my flashlight toward the sound of the shopping cart. It was closer now, the metal wheels screeching softly against the tile floor. But the moment the light touched the aisle, It stopped. Silence. I stepped forward. The cart stood in the middle of the aisle, filled to the brim. Cans, frozen dinners, cereal boxes, all brand new. A handwritten note was taped to the handle. Stock complete. It was my handwriting. A chill crept down my neck. I turned, scanning the aisles. Everything looked exactly as before, but now faint music began playing through the store speakers. An old pop song from the 1980s, warped and slowed down, like it was underwater. The same verse looped endlessly. Come back again someday. Behind me, a beep. The checkout scanner had turned on. Red light flashing across the counter. One by one, items began sliding down the conveyor belt on their own. Beep, beep, beep. Each item scanned itself and printed a new receipt. I picked one up. Transaction voided. Customer left. The lights above the register flickered violently. The intercom voice returned, now slightly distorted, almost whispering. All employees must remain inside after closing. Something shifted behind the shelves. A slow scraping sound, like heavy boxes being dragged. I ducked behind a display and peeked through the gaps. There were figures moving between the aisles, silhouettes transparent, flickering like reflections on glass. They wore aprons, name tags, faces blurred by static. One of them was humming along to the music. Another was restocking cans, the exact same can I had picked up earlier. And then one of them turned its head straight toward me. No eyes, no mouth. Just the faint outline of a face pressed against something invisible. It raised a hand and pointed directly at my chest. The speaker screeched, feedback tearing through the silence. Then the voice said, "Come again. Clean up in aisle 1. The figures vanished. I ran for the exit, pushing through the automatic doors, but they didn't budge. The glass showed only my reflection. Except, this time I was smiling. My reflection lifted a can of beans, scanned it, and whispered through the glass. Transaction complete. Then the lights blinked off for good. Darkness swallowed the aisles. The only light came from the flickering, open 24 hours sign outside. Except I knew it hadn't worked when I arrived. I banged on the doors again, but the glass was like concrete. My reflection moved half a second late, tilting its head as if curious. Behind me, the intercom crackled to life one more time. Attention, shoppers. Store will reopen at midnight. Midnight again. The same hour. I checked my watch. It was stuck on 11:59 p.m. Seconds frozen. I turned my flashlight on, sweeping the aisles. Every product was gone. The shelves stood bare, stripped clean, as if someone had cleared them in a heartbeat. But at the end of aisle 3, I saw something new. Rows of photos, taped neatly to the wall. They were all of me. Different angles, different days, some with me holding a broom, others behind the counter, even one of me standing outside the building, looking in through the window. Every single one labeled with a date, stretching back years. The last photo was dated tomorrow, and in it I wasn't looking at the store. I was inside it. Something moved behind the photo wall. I reached out, my hand trembling, and peeled one of the pictures away. Behind it was a small hole just big enough to see through. On the other side was another version of the store, identical but inverted, lit in cold blue light. There were people shopping in there, dozens of them. Some looked familiar. I realized, horrified, they were all the figures I'd seen before. Cashiers, customers, stockers, moving silently, repeating the same gestures again and again. One of them turned toward the hole and pressed their face close to it. It was me, he whispered, voice muffled but clear. You're late for your shift. The wall pulsed like breathing flesh. The hole began to widen, stretching into a doorway of wet, shining plastic. I stumbled back, but my reflection in the freezer door reached out from inside and grabbed my wrist. Cold as ice, grip unbreakable. My flashlight fell to the floor. For a second, I saw the store as it truly was. Rotting walls, collapsed ceiling, shelves buried under decades of dust. No food, no lights, no sound. And then everything snapped back. Clean, bright, stocked again. The intercom spoke softly, almost kindly. Thank you for staying with us, Adam. I looked down. The name tag on my shirt glowed faintly. Employee of the month. The clock behind the register ticked once, then stopped, permanently, at 11:59 p.m. Whispers in concrete. When we started the renovation project in Novorad, the city felt dead. Rows of brutalist apartment blocks, gray skies, and an echo in every empty hallway that didn't belong to us. Our team of 6 had been hired to restore a section of the old industrial district, demolish some buildings, reinforce others. Nothing unusual, but by the end of the first week, we'd already lost 2 workers. They didn't die, they just left, walked off-site in the middle of the night, leaving their gear behind, phones still charging. No note, no trace. I was the site engineer responsible for documentation. My name's Pavlo, and I swear, I'm not a superstitious man, but whatever we unearthed beneath Building 11 should have stayed buried. It started with the concrete. When the drills first hit the foundation, the bits came out black, not from oil but from something thicker, like ash soaked in water. Then the smell hit us. Not chemical, not rot, something like burnt paper mixed with iron. We thought it was old insulation or a broken sewage line. But then Petro, our foreman, called me over to see something. Under the rebar grid, we found bones. Hundreds of them, small, crushed, layered between slabs like they'd been mixed into the concrete itself. The site went silent. Even the machines stopped humming for a moment. I called the municipal office. They said the district had no records of burials. Probably animal remains, they told us. Continue work, but they weren't animals. I knew that the moment we found a jawbone, perfectly human, teeth still intact. That night, the first whisper came. It started in the generator shed. A low vibration in the concrete floor, almost like the building itself was humming. Petro thought it was faulty wiring. He went down to the basement to check. 10 minutes later, he radioed me, voice shaking. The concrete's breathing. I ran down there with a flashlight. The basement walls pulsed faintly, dust trickling from the ceiling. When I put my hand on the wall, it was warm. Then a sound came from inside it. Not an echo, not machinery. A whisper, soft, layered, thousands of voices tangled together. I couldn't understand the words, but I felt them vibrate through my bones. When we left that night, Petro stayed behind to record the sound. He didn't show up the next morning. His tools were there, his radio still on, but the concrete floor where he'd been standing was darker now, smoother, as if freshly poured. The police came, took notes, looked bored. Maybe he fell into the river, one of them said. You people work too many hours. You start imagining things. They left before dark. None of them wanted to stay once the sun dipped behind the cranes. We kept working because we had to. 2 days later, they sent a replacement for Petro, a young guy named Maxim. He laughed at our nerves. Concrete doesn't whisper, he said, slapping the nearest wall. It cracks. That night it cracked. We were cutting through a lower corridor wall when the drill hit a hollow space. A narrow cavity, like a hidden tunnel, only a meter wide. I crouched, shining my light through the gap. The beam caught something metallic, a rusted plaque with faded letters. Do not expose. Behind it, more concrete. But the hum came stronger now, steady as a heartbeat. Maxim stuck his hand through the gap, trying to widen it. The moment his fingers touched the inner wall, he screamed. We pulled him out. His hand was ice cold, skin pale and rough like stone. He couldn't stop shaking. They're in there, he whispered. They're all in there. We took him to the truck, wrapped his hand, but by dawn, the color had spread up his arm, a faint gray tint crawling toward his shoulder. He begged us not to take him to a hospital. They'll bury me in it, he said. By noon, he was gone too. His cot was empty, his jacket still hanging on the door. On the floor, a chunk of broken concrete shaped like a hand. I wanted to quit. Everyone did. But the contractor kept pressuring us, calling from the office in Kiev, saying we were behind schedule. I didn't tell them what we'd seen. They wouldn't believe it. That evening, while reviewing the site camera footage, I noticed something strange. The timestamp kept skipping. 2:17, 02:18, 217 again. In one of those repeating seconds, the frame changed. There was a person standing behind me, not moving, not facing the camera, just there. The silhouette was smooth, featureless, gray from head to toe. When the loop ended, the figure was gone. The next night, the hum was back, louder, and this time it came with words muffled, slow, almost human. Build with US. The walls trembled, dust fell like snow, and in the cracks between the slabs, I saw movement. Faint shadows crawling beneath the surface like veins coming alive. To be why then, none of us slept. The noise never stopped, low, rhythmic, like the earth itself was breathing through the foundations. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw gray faces pressed behind the concrete, mouths moving silently. On the fifth night, I went back down alone. I needed proof, something to show the company, the police, anyone. I brought a camera, a sound recorder, and a sledgehammer. The basement felt warmer than usual, like heat radiated from the floor. When I switched on the recorder, the sound came instantly. A chorus of whispers, layered until they formed a single word that almost made sense. Return. The wall with the plaque, "Do not expose," seemed to pulse in rhythm with the sound. I lifted the sledgehammer and struck. The crack echoed like thunder. A cloud of dust burst out, coating everything gray. Beneath the surface, instead of rebar, there was flesh-colored material, soft and spongy. The smell of metal filled my lungs. I hit again, and that's when something inside moved. A hand. Not stone, not bone, fresh. It reached out through the fracture, gripping the handle of the hammer. Its skin looked wet, shimmering under the flashlight. And the voice came again, clearer now, dozens of throats speaking as one. Build with us. I dropped the hammer, stumbled back. The wall began to bulge outward, forming vague human shapes pushing against it from the inside. Faces, shoulders, hands. I could see Petro's cap embedded in the surface, half swallowed by gray. I ran. The corridor behind me cracked open, lines snaking across the floor, every vibration echoing like footsteps. When I reached the stairwell, the upper floors groaned and shifted, the building breathing. Outside, I collapsed beside the truck. The ground trembled beneath my palms. Then silence. When the sun rose, Building 11 was gone. Not demolished, gone. In its place stood a new slab of concrete, perfectly smooth, still wet, with our equipment half buried inside. No one believed my report. The company blamed sinkhole collapse. The city rebuilt over it months later. I quit construction work, moved to another town. But sometimes, when a building shakes during a storm, I swear I can hear it again. That same low hum under my feet, whispering my name through the floor. Pavlo, build with us. The Elevator Hotel. Every city has one building no one talks about. The kind you notice only once, then never again. In Boston, that building was the Orion Hotel, closed since 1978 after a fire on the upper floors. No one ever restored it, yet the power lines were still connected. The front desk light still glowed faintly at night. I wasn't a thrill seeker. I was a photographer, urban decay, architecture, beauty and ruins. The Orion was my next project, the missing piece in my photo series, America's Empty Hearts. When I first stepped inside, it smelled like perfume and smoke. The lobby was frozen in time. Red carpet faded to brown, gold chandeliers dangling like spiderwebs. The reception bell gleamed as if someone polished it yesterday. I started taking pictures, long exposures, soft flash. Everything looked ordinary for an abandoned hotel, until I checked my first photo. There was a woman in it. She stood behind the reception desk, blurry but distinct. A 1950s uniform, white gloves, name tag reading Clara. I looked up. The desk was empty. I tried again, another photo, another glimpse. This time, the woman was standing closer to the elevator, her head tilted slightly toward the camera. I told myself it was dust, lens flare, a reflection, but when I lowered the camera, the elevator doors opened by themselves. No power should have been running, but the light inside flickered weakly. The brass buttons glowed, 1 to 13. I pressed the shutter again. Click. The photo preview froze, distorted, showing the number 14 lit on the panel. But there was no 14th floor. I stepped inside. The doors shut instantly behind me. The air felt heavy, electric. My flashlight dimmed. Then, the elevator began to move. Not up or down, but in a way that made my stomach twist, like space itself was bending. The digital display above the door flickered through numbers. 2, 3, 7, 12, 14. It stopped. A soft ding. The doors opened. A long hallway stretched before me. Walls clean, lights bright, carpet unburned. The hotel looked alive. Music played faintly somewhere in the distance. A slow waltz on an old piano. Then I saw her, the receptionist from the photos. She smiled, eyes pale as fog. "Welcome back, sir. Your room is ready." Her voice was warm, practiced, the kind that made you believe you were expected. I swallowed hard, forcing a shaky smile. "Sorry, I think there's been a mistake. I'm just checking in," she finished for me, still smiling. "You always are." Before I could respond, she turned and began walking down the hall. Her heels made no sound on the carpet. I followed, every instinct screaming not to, but curiosity pulled harder. The hallway seemed endless. Doors lined both sides, identical, gold numbers engraved on polished wood. 1201, 1202, 1203. Yet the further we walked, the colder the air became. My breath fogged in front of me. Finally, she stopped at room 1214. There was number 1213. She handed me a tarnished key. "You left something here last time." Before I could ask what she meant, she vanished. Not faded, not walked away. Simply wasn't there anymore. The door creaked open at my touch. Inside, the room was spotless. Bed made, lamp on, window curtains drawn. Everything smelled faintly of burnt wood and roses. A single suitcase sat on the floor beside the bed. Old, leather, initials embossed on the lid. AW, my initials. I didn't own any luggage like that. I knelt and opened it. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them. Black and white portraits of people I didn't know. Every face looked terrified. On the back of each photo, in faded ink, was the same phrase. "Guest checked out, floor 14. My hands trembled. The walls around me seemed to pulse slightly, like breathing. Then the lamp flickered, and the radio on the nightstand came to life. A soft, static-laced voice spoke calmly. "Dear guests, the elevator is now descending." The floor vibrated beneath my feet. From outside the door came the familiar ding of the elevator bell. Slow, patient. I stepped into the hallway. All the other doors were open now, light spilling from each room. In every doorway stood someone, pale, motionless, eyes hollow. They watched me silently, their shadows stretching far too long across the carpet. Then, one by one, they turned toward the elevator and began walking, in perfect unison. The bell rang again. Ding. The elevator doors opened to welcome them, though the cabin inside was pitch black. No reflection, no sound. Just a faint breeze that smelled of smoke and old perfume. As the last figure stepped in, the lights flickered out. When they came back on, the hallway was empty. Only one thing remained. A single key on the carpet, marked room 14. I picked up the key. It was cold, not like metal, but like something that had been buried deep underground. The tag shimmered faintly in the light. Room 14, engraved in the same gold as the elevator buttons. There was no 14th floor, at least not in the blueprints I'd seen. Still, I turned toward the elevator. The doors were wide open now, light spilling from inside. Soft music played, the same waltz as before, looping endlessly, slightly warped like an old record. I stepped in. The air inside felt thicker, humming quietly, as if the cabin itself had lungs. The doors slid shut on their own. The panel showed no numbers, only one glowing button. 14. I pressed it. The elevator began to move, slow, deliberate, pulling me downward and upward at the same time. My stomach twisted, my ears popped. The lights flickered between red and white. For a moment, I thought I saw my reflection in the steel door, but it wasn't mirroring me. It was smiling, The music distorted, melting into static. Then came voices, faint but layered. Laughter, weeping, whispers. Guests who never checked out. The elevator stopped. Ding. When the doors opened, I was in the same hallway again. Or so I thought. The air was hotter now, thick with the smell of smoke. Wallpaper peeled from the walls, blackened by fire. The carpet squelched beneath my boots, wet, but not with water. At the far end of the corridor, the receptionist stood waiting. Her uniform was charred, her skin cracked like burnt porcelain, yet she smiled the same perfect smile. "We're so glad you came back, Mr. Walker. How do you know my name?" I whispered. She gestured toward the walls. Dozens of framed photographs now lined them, all pictures of me. In one, I was taking a photo of the lobby. In another, I was standing in the elevator. In the last one, I was burning. The floor trembled. The fire alarm began to scream, though the speakers melted from heat. I ran toward the elevator, but it was gone. Just a blackened hole in the wall where it had been. The woman's voice followed me, echoing down the hallway. "You always check in, sir, but you never leave." Flames licked the ceiling, and the building's skeleton groaned like something alive. I kicked open a door, room 14, and stepped into darkness. The fire vanished. The air cooled instantly. I was standing in the hotel lobby again. Clean, quiet. The front desk lamp glowing softly, untouched by time. The receptionist was gone. The elevator stood waiting. Its doors slid open. Inside, the brass panel shone perfectly polished, with one new button at the bottom. "Welcome back." I dropped the camera and walked out into the night. The hotel lights flickered once, then went dark. Weeks later, when I developed my final photos, every frame was black except one. The elevator doors, half open, and inside of me, smiling, left behind. We weren't supposed to stay. The evacuation orders had been clear. Leave within 24 hours, or the air would do what bullets never could. But we stayed. My name's Daniel. 2 months ago, a chemical fire at the Harrow industrial plant turned half the city into a restricted zone. My wife, Elena, didn't want to abandon our home, the memories, the photographs, her garden. I told her we'd wait just a few days. Those days became weeks. The streets outside were silent now. No birds, no engines, just the faint metallic hiss of wind through broken pipes. We lived in a small apartment near the factory. Every morning, I checked the Geiger meter I'd found online. It always flickered red, but we pretended it meant nothing. Denial is easier when you have no place left to go. At night, the city glowed faintly green on the horizon, like fog backlit by lightning. Elena said it was beautiful. I said it was poison. She laughed, kissed me, and told me to stop worrying. But the coughing started soon after. She said it was the dust. I said it was the air. Either way, she grew weaker. One morning, I woke to find her sitting by the window, staring out at the empty streets. "There's someone out there," she said softly. I looked. Nothing but cracked asphalt and fog. "He's been standing there for hours," she whispered. I grabbed the binoculars. No one, just a shimmer in the heat. But when I lowered them, a faint knock came from the front door. Elena smiled. "See? He's polite." I told her not to open it. We didn't. Hours passed, no sound, no movement. When I finally looked again, a small box sat outside on the porch, wrapped in white cloth. No footprints leading to it. Inside was a mask, industrial, clean, brand new, and a note, for her. That night, Elena slept peacefully for the first time in weeks. The mask fit perfectly, but I couldn't stop wondering who had left it, or why. The next morning, I woke up alone. The bed still warm, the door wide open, and the mask sitting neatly on the pillow beside me. Outside, the fog was thicker. I called her name. No answer. Then, from the direction of the factory, I heard her voice. Faint, carried on the wind. "It's safe now, Danny. Come see." I followed her voice through the haze, stepping over broken fences and wilted grass that crumbled under my boots. The air smelled like burnt plastic and rain that never came. My Geiger meter hissed louder the closer I got to the factory. I knew it was madness to go there, the epicenter of the leak, where the air shimmered like heat but tasted like metal. But her voice kept calling, soft and familiar. Just a little further. I passed rows of abandoned cars, doors open, seats covered in white dust. Some of them still had belongings inside: photos, coffee cups, a child's shoe. Everything frozen midlife, like the city had stopped breathing all at once. By the time I reached the outer gate, the fog had turned silver, dense enough to hide the factory towers. The sound of dripping echoed somewhere ahead, steady and rhythmic. I called out again, "Elena!" No reply, just the drip. I stepped inside. The factory floor was littered with tools, barrels, and footprints. Dozens of them, all fresh. Someone had been here recently, or was still here. In the center of the main hall stood a single metal door marked Reactor Access. My flashlight beam caught something written beneath it in black paint. "We stayed too." The door creaked open with a long sigh. The room beyond glowed faintly, a cold, pulsating light that seemed to breathe. And there she was, Elena. She stood at the far end of the chamber, back turned to me, her hair floating slightly, as if underwater. The floor shimmered beneath her feet. "Elena!" I ran toward her. My boots splashed. Not on concrete, but in something thick, clear, almost alive. She turned. Her eyes reflected the green glow, calm, empty, almost serene. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she whispered. "They're not gone, Danny. They're just part of it now." I looked down. Shapes moved beneath the translucent floor. Human outlines, dozens of them. Faces pressed against the surface, mouths open in silent words. "Elena, please, we have to go." She smiled gently and touched my cheek. Her hand was cold, grainy like glass. "You can't leave what you've already become." The light pulsed brighter, humming through the walls, vibrating in my bones. The faces beneath us stirred. Some looked like people I knew. One of them looked exactly like me. I stumbled backward, nearly slipping on the glassy floor. My reflection stared up from beneath the surface, not quite matching my movements, a half-second delay like a broken mirror. The hum in the air deepened until it became a single, continuous tone that rattled my teeth. "Elena, please," I shouted. "This isn't real." She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the floor. The glow around her brightened, soft green bleeding into her skin until she looked carved from the same light as the fog. "It's more real than what's left out there," she said softly. "You'll see." The air grew thicker, almost fluid. Breathing felt like drowning. My Geiger meter screamed, its needle pinned to the end of the scale. I grabbed her arm, and for a heartbeat, I felt her warmth again. Then her skin cracked, not from pain but like old paint giving way. Tiny flakes of glass drifted off her shoulder and vanished before touching the floor. Beneath, her body glowed faintly, hollow and translucent. "Don't fight it, Danny," she whispered. "They're waiting for you." I looked down again. The faces beneath the surface were clearer now. People of every age, frozen mid-expression. Their eyes followed me. Some smiled. Others looked like they were still screaming. The hum shifted into a low, synchronized whisper. My name repeated over and over. "Daniel, Daniel, Daniel." I tried to run, but the floor pulsed under my boots, turning soft, pulling at me. My legs sank an inch, then two. The material was warm, sticky, almost welcoming. Elena knelt beside me, cupping my face with both hands. "You shouldn't have stayed," she murmured. "No one ever leaves." Her lips touched mine, cold, dry, and gone in an instant. Then she stepped backward into the light, her outline dissolving like smoke into glass. I screamed and yanked my legs free, falling hard against the metal doorframe. The hum stopped. The light vanished. The factory was silent again. Empty. The floor beneath me was dull concrete. No glow, no faces, only a faint layer of dust where she'd been standing. I walked home alone through the fog, mask on, lungs burning. Our apartment door was still open. The mask she'd worn sat on the table perfectly clean. Inside it, faintly etched into the plastic, were two words: "Stay behind." That night, as I lay awake listening to the silence, I swore I heard her breathing beside me. Soft, rhythmic, almost human, coming from inside the walls. Postcards from nowhere. I started collecting postcards when I was 10. Old, sun-faded ones from flea markets and antique shops, little pieces of time someone had decided to mail away. Most were dull. Beaches, highways, lighthouses. But last year I found one that changed everything. It showed a place called Riverton, a small industrial town surrounded by pine forest and misty hills. The image looked ordinary: a main street, a diner, a few cars. But the strange thing was the postmark. Riverton, Michigan, May 2022. That wouldn't be odd, except Riverton had been destroyed in a flood back in 1991. No one lived there. No one had since. At first, I thought it was a hoax, a reprint. But when I turned the card over, my blood ran cold. "Wish you were here again, Sam. It's quieter now. No return address. Just a signature. My name is Sam Keller, and no one alive calls me Sam anymore. Not since college. Only one person ever did, Mia Harper. My ex. She died in that same flood." I tried to laugh it off. Maybe a coincidence, someone with the same initials. But a week later, I found another one in my mailbox. Same handwriting, same town, different date. Riverton, June 2023. The message was short. "It still rains every night. You'd love the sound." I contacted the Postal Service. They checked. No active routes in that region. The last delivery truck to Riverton sank in the flood over 30 years ago. That night, I dreamt of the town. Streets washed in silver moonlight, water running quietly through the gutters, every window glowing with soft yellow light. And in one of them, Mia stood behind the glass, smiling, holding a postcard. When I woke up, my phone buzzed with a notification. New mail arrived. I checked the porch dry, empty. But when I opened the door, a postcard was lying face down on the welcome mat. The ink still wet. It read, "You're late." The postmark, Riverton, July 2024. And this time, the photograph on the front wasn't the town. It was my house. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house sounded like paper sliding under the door. Around 3 a.m., I gave up trying and started digging. I pulled out every postcard I'd collected since childhood, over 200. Most were harmless, but the Riverton ones, they felt different. The paper was damp, slightly warm, like it had just come out of the rain. I laid them all out on the floor. 3 so far: May, June, July. All postmarked exactly a year apart. But when I lined up the photographs, something clicked. Each picture showed the same street, but at different times of day. The shadows shifted, the lights changed. When placed in sequence, they formed a continuous panorama, the whole town, frame by frame. And in every one, barely visible in the distance, a woman stood at the same spot by the river, always facing the camera. I tried calling the local police, but they transferred me between departments until the line went dead. No one wanted to talk about Riverton. One dispatcher finally muttered, "Don't go near it," before hanging up. By morning, I decided to drive there myself. The roads were cracked and overgrown. GPS lost signal an hour before I reached what was left of the bridge, half submerged in muddy water. The town should have been gone, erased. But across the river, through the fog, I saw lights, faint yellow flickering like lanterns. I parked and crossed on foot. Every step echoed, the wood soft and wet under my boots. When I reached the other side, I expected rubble. Instead, Riverton stood whole again. Quiet, empty, streets glistening like after rain. The diner from the postcard was there, its neon sign buzzing faintly. Open all night. Inside, everything was clean, as if someone had just left. Coffee steamed on the counter. A jukebox hummed softly, stuck on a single verse. Then I saw her, Mia, sitting in a booth by the window just like in my dream. She looked older but unmistakable. She smiled when she saw me. "Took you long enough." I couldn't speak, My throat was dry. How are you here? She gestured toward the rain-streaked window. Outside, the river shimmered like liquid glass. You never left, Sam. Not really. You just forgot where you mailed yourself. I blinked. My fingers brushed against the camera bag at my side. I hadn't brought any postcards with me, but something was inside the bag, thick and papery. Dozens of cards, all blank. The postcards were heavy in my hands, edges damp, ink bleeding slightly as if they had soaked up the fog outside. Each one blank except for faint impressions on the surface, indentations where words had once been written and then scraped away. Mia watched me from the booth, her smile gentle, almost apologetic. You don't remember the last one, do you? I shook my head. What last one? She reached into her pocket and slid a new postcard across the table. It was already addressed to Samuel Keller, 217 Broad Street. My address. The image on the front showed the diner we were sitting in, and through the window my reflection stared back at me, camera in hand. Mia, what is this place? She looked out toward the rain. A delay, she whispered, where things that aren't ready to leave keep writing to the living. She glanced at the postcards in my hands. You sent them to yourself every year. You just forgot why. I turned the card over. My handwriting. I recognized the loop in the S, the slant in the K. Wish you were here again. It's quieter now. The first message. My message. I felt the air grow heavy, the diner lights dimming. The jukebox slowed, its song warping until the melody became a soft, endless hum. Outside, the rain stopped midair, droplets suspended like glass beads. You shouldn't have come back, Mia said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes shimmered with tears that didn't fall. The river doesn't forget its names. The fog pressed closer to the windows, shaping itself into outlines. Houses, streets, people. The town returning, rebuilding itself from memory. From mine. I looked back down at the blank postcards. The top one now had new writing. Return to sender. Mia reached out, touching my hand. Her skin was cold, paper thin. When the mail stops coming, it means the waters finally reached you. The lights flickered once, and then I was standing alone on the bridge. The diner, the town gone. Only dark water below, rippling softly against the posts. In my pocket, the last postcard. Front, Riverton under the moon. Back, delivered. The ink was still wet. The last station. I took the night shift because no one else wanted it. The pay was decent, the work was quiet. Just me, a chair, and a bank of flickering monitors showing a subway line that hadn't carried a train in 20 years. The city closed the red line after a tunnel collapsed back in 2004, sealing it off for good. Now the platform was a museum piece. They called it Station 9, but among workers it had another name, the station that waits. My job was simple: watch the old CCTV feed from midnight to 6, make sure no one broke in through the service tunnels. The cameras ran on a private generator, so the footage was grainy, full of static. Most nights were dead silent, just the hum of the monitors and the occasional drip of condensation from the pipes above. Until the night the trains came back. Started at 1:13 a.m. The main screen flickered. A shape moved across the tracks. Too tall for a rat, too quick for a person. I leaned closer. The image cleared just enough for me to see lights in the distance. Two beams, faint and white, cutting through the tunnel. I froze. That was impossible. The entire red line was cut off from power. The hum of the monitors grew louder, sinking with the rumble building beneath my feet. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Then, for just a few seconds, I heard it, the unmistakable screech of metal on rails, echoing from miles below. The sound faded, replaced by static. When the cameras cleared again, something new appeared on the platform. A single passenger. A woman. She stood near the bench, motionless, dressed in an old gray coat and a scarf that fluttered even though there was no wind. She wasn't looking at the camera. She was staring straight at the empty tunnel, waiting. I grabbed the mic to call the maintenance crew, but the intercom was dead. Every system light on the board blinked red at once. I switched to camera 2 closer view. The woman was gone. Camera 3, nothing. Camera 4. She was standing right in front of the lens, face obscured by static. Then the feed cut to black. For the rest of the night, every camera stayed dark. Only one light remained on the console, the old arrival indicator, glowing faintly. Next train due, 1:47 a.m. But that line hadn't been updated since 2004. I tried to convince myself it was a glitch. Maybe some old program looped the schedule or interference triggered the indicator. But the building was shaking again, faintly, like something massive was moving beneath it. I switched the console off. The hum didn't stop. The air grew warmer, carrying a scent of metal and dust, the kind that follows lightning. The ventilation ducts began to rattle softly, in rhythm with the tremor. Then, from somewhere down in the tunnels, came the sound of brakes screeching, long, sharp, and real. I turned the monitors back on. All 7 cameras flickered to life. The platform was bright now, flooded with lights that shouldn't have power. And there it was, a train. Old silver with red stripes down the side, the kind retired before I was even born. It stood perfectly still, doors open, fog rolling out onto the platform. No one was supposed to be down there. My hands shook as I grabbed the service radio. Static, every channel dead. I turned up the volume and froze. Beneath the static, faint voices. Not random chatter, announcements. The kind stations used to play before every departure. Final stop. All passengers, please board. I stared at the screen. The woman in the gray coat had returned. She stepped onto the train slowly, head down, her scarf trailing behind. Then another figure appeared, and another, dozens of them. Transparent silhouettes drifting out of the shadows and into the carriages, each moving like they'd done it 1,000 times before. The lights flickered. The train's number plate glowed faintly. Number 917, the same one from the collapse report. I'd read my first day here. That train had been crushed when the ceiling gave way. 27 passengers trapped inside. None recovered. The intercom beside me crackled to life, though the power was still off. A voice whispered through the static, calm and close. Doors closing. The monitors went white for a second, then black again. When the image returned, the train was gone. All that remained on the platform was the woman's gray scarf, lying still beside the tracks. I stood up, heart pounding, and started toward the stairwell. But then I saw it, my reflection in the blank monitor. Except it wasn't sitting at the desk. It was standing on the platform, waiting for the next train. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and looked again. But the reflection didn't move. It wasn't mimicking me at all. The man on the screen, the one who looked exactly like me, stood under the platform lights, staring down the dark tunnel. His posture was rigid, unnatural. His shadow stretched much longer than it should have. Then the speaker beside the monitor crackled again, and my own voice came through. Final train approaching. Please remain behind the yellow line. I froze. I hadn't spoken. The reflection smiled, a small, grim curve of the lips, and raised its hand as if waving me closer. Then the monitors flickered violently, switching between feeds. Empty tunnels, the abandoned ticket hall, and finally camera 4, showing the control room I was in. The door behind me was open. I turned slowly. The corridor light flickered, casting long shadows down the stairwell that led to the platform. A draft of air rolled upward, warm, damp, smelling faintly of rust and ozone. And under that hum of electricity, I heard it again. Steel grinding on steel. A train. Coming closer. Every rational thought screamed run, but something deeper pulled me forward, like gravity. I descended the stairs, flashlight trembling in my hand. The platform was lit again, impossibly bright, spotless, as if 20 years had rewound in an instant. Benches polished, posters fresh, clocks ticking. The scarf was gone. In its place, a new arrival indicator blinked. Train number 918, arriving. The tunnel wind hit me first, followed by a low rumble. Headlights bloomed in the darkness, washing everything in pale light. The train slid to a stop, brakes sighing softly. The doors opened with a hiss. Inside, the seats were full. Every passenger sat perfectly still, eyes closed, hands folded neatly in their laps. A uniformed conductor stood by the door, face hidden by the brim of his cap. He looked up at me. "You're late." I tried to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. My reflection, the one from the monitor, was standing inside the train now, watching me through the window. He looked calm, peaceful even. The conductor tilted his head. Final boarding call. The whistle blew, low, mournful, echoing through the tunnels like a heartbeat. When I finally blinked, the train was gone. The lights were off. The platform returned to dust and silence. Only one thing remained. A thin layer of ash shaped like two footprints at the edge of the tracks. Up in the control room, the monitors flickered back on. Camera 4 showed the platform, empty except for a man in a gray uniform, sitting at the bench watching the rails. Me.